The days following my return were suffocating. The life of a free man was gone. In its place, the routine of the trash baron returned, but with a new, heavier variable, Elara. She was everywhere. She hovered around me like a satellite locked in orbit. The Ice Queen was back, but her gaze was different now, watchful, suspicious. I tried to find time to be alone, to think about the hologram of Earth I had seen in the ruins, but privacy was a luxury I no longer possessed. I was trapped in my own home. On the third day, I walked out to the courtyard to find the carriage already waiting. I hadn't told Elara about the family invitation. I intended to go alone, but there she was, standing by the open door, dressed in a gown of pale blue silk that cost more than a peasant village. My eyes drifted to Sebastian. The old butler turned his head, avoiding my gaze. Of course, he was a traitor. He must have messaged her while I was away at the ruins, telling her I was alive, pulling her back from her mission early. "Lady Everhart," I sighed, walking down the steps, "you are not obligated to come. This is unpleasant family business." "I am your wife, Lord Valorian," she replied, her voice leaving no room for argument. "We have already discussed this. Get in." "As you wish," I muttered. The carriage ride was a masterclass in tension. I tapped my fingers against my knee, staring out the window. Why this invitation? Why now? "You seem stressed," Elara noted, watching me. "I am always stressed," I replied without looking at her. "You just never noticed before." It was a cruel thing to say, but necessary. It fit the narrative. The old Aric was always anxious, drinking alcohol to drown his weakness. Elara went quiet. "I see," she said softly. "I apologize for not noticing sooner." I seized the opening. "I have told you already, Elara. What happened? What you did to heal me, it was impressive, but it proves that we are too different. That is why we must separate. I told you not to speak of that subject," she cut in sharply. I turned my head back to the window. Stubborn Mage. We reached the destination, the Valorian ancestral castle. It wasn't a home, it was a fortress of ego. We entered the grand hall where the small family gathering was in full swing. To me, it looked like a shark tank. If Elara had just accepted the divorce and taken my assets, I wouldn't be here right now. I scanned the room. The heavy hitters were all here, the main characters of the Valorian line. First, there was Darian. Red hair, broad shoulders, a spellblade. He was the most powerful member of the younger generation, the favorite to inherit the family leadership. The entire family whispered that he was the one who should have married Elara. Honestly, I agreed with them, but saying that out loud would get me killed today. Then the two prodigies, Lumina with her golden hair wielding the rare light magic, and Seraphina, the dark-haired beauty, a master of high-tier healing magic. Over by the drinks stood the archer, a blond man with eyes like a hawk, and in the corner, the terrifying one, a woman with long black hair and red eyes, resting her hand on a katana, a dark magic user. And then there was me, the mana null, the defect. "Aric!" The voice cut through the noise. I looked up. Sitting on her high chair like a throne was the matriarch, my grandmother. She beckoned me with a single withered finger. "She called me already," I whispered to Elara. "Let's get this over with." We approached the throne. I bowed with perfect, practiced respect. Elara curtsied. The grandmother looked at me with eyes that had seen a century of war. You have changed a little, Aric." "This old woman has sharp eyes," I thought. "Sorry, grandmother," I lied smoothly. "Nothing has changed." "Tell me, Aric, can you defeat more than one goblin at a time yet?" The insult was casual, public. "I am afraid," I said, keeping my head lowered, "that even a single goblin gives me trouble these days." Elara glanced at me, her brow furrowing. Grandmother nodded. "I see. Yes, you see, I thought bitterly. You and grandfather arranged this marriage. This failure is your design. Grandmother turned her attention to my wife. Her expression softened instantly. Elara, you become more beautiful every time I see you, my child. Thank you, grandmother, Elara replied politely. I heard the news about the elves and your last mission at the border. Splendid work. I did nothing alone, madame. It was a team effort. Modest, grandmother scoffed. She glanced back at me with disdain. You are not like this boy here. Elara, my daughter, you do not deserve a man like Aric. You deserve 1,000 times better. My heart skipped a beat. Yes, I thought. She said it. She admits I'm not worthy. Wait, I don't remember her being against the marriage before. Elara, grandmother, continued, her voice low and serious. You must choose the right man for you. Life is too short to carry dead weight. Elara said nothing. I looked at Elara. She wasn't defending me. This was it, the moment or never. Grandmother, I stepped forward, putting on my saddest face. Actually, in reality, crunch! Pain exploded in my foot. Elara had stomped on my boot with her heel, grinding it into the floor. What? I gasped, looking at her. She didn't even look at me. You think I'm going to miss this chance? I screamed internally. I turned back to the grandmother. Grandmother, actually, Elara grabbed my arm. Her grip was iron. Grandmother, Elara interrupted, her voice sweet and deadly. Our relationship is advancing. We are much closer now than before, aren't we, Elara? She squeezed my arm. It was a threat. What? Wait, I blurted. Grandmother looked shocked for a moment. Then a slow, calculating smile spread across her face. I see. Very well, then. I wish you a pleasant evening. I must speak to the others. She stood up and walked away. No, wait, I started. You really don't miss an opportunity, do you? Elara whispered, smiling at the room while pinching my arm. Damn it, I missed another exit. I watched grandmother walk away. I hadn't expected that. She effectively gave Elara a choice, stay or leave. In the old Aric's memories, she was a tyrant who forced the union, but I couldn't trust those memories. The old Aric was too drunk to analyze politics. I looked around the hall. The gaze of the family was heavy. They looked at Elara with admiration. Then their eyes slid to me, and the look curdled into pure disgust. They were right. Every person in this room was a success story for the Valorian name, except me. I know where this conversation is going inside your head, Lord Valorian, Elara said quietly. I am not interested in their opinions of you. Oh, come on, I sighed, spotting a figure approaching us with a goblet of wine. Look who it is, my favorite cousin. Cousin Aric. The voice was loud, grating, and dripping with false cheer. I turned to see him. Jace Valorian. He was a short man with canary yellow hair and a smile that looked like it had been practiced in a mirror for hours. He was a fire mage, a bully, and, according to my memories, the man who had tormented the old Aric since childhood. Cousin, I replied, keeping my voice flat. It has been a long time. Any news? News? Jace laughed, swirling the red wine in his crystal goblet. He stood flanked by two giggling noblewomen who looked at me like I was a muddy dog that had wandered indoors. Oh, nothing much, just the usual heroism. I defeated a goblin champion last week. Can you believe it? I blinked. A goblin champion? I thought. You? You look like you would faint if you broke a nail. I defeated a champion with 0 mana and a concussion. I see, I said aloud. That is impressive. You wouldn't know, of course, Jace sneered, leaning in. I doubt you've ever even seen a monster, let alone fought one. I hear you struggle with staircases. The women laughed. I didn't say anything. I just stared at him. Jace, disappointed by my lack of reaction, turned his attention to my wife. His demeanor changed instantly from mockery to oily charm. "Good evening, Lady Everhart," he said, bowing too low. "I must say you shine like a star amidst this dull gathering. I wish you a pleasant evening." He winked at her, then turned to walk away. But he didn't just walk, he calculated his path perfectly. As he passed me, he stumbled. He lurched forward, his shoulder slamming into mine. Splash! The contents of his goblet, an expensive deep red vintage, poured directly on the chest of my pristine black silk shirt. The cold liquid soaked through the fabric instantly, sticking to my skin. But it wasn't the cold that bothered me. It was the smell. The sharp, fermented scent of wine filled my nose. In my previous life on Earth, I hated alcohol. It dulled the mind. It made logic fuzzy. But for the body I currently inhabited, this smell was a trigger. The old Aric had drowned himself in this poison. The scent brought back phantom memories of hangovers, vomiting, and crying on the floor. "Oops," Jace exclaimed, steadying himself. He looked at the stain on my chest and grinned. "My apologies, cousin. Clumsy of me." He leaned in close, whispering so only I could hear. "But I think you're happy, aren't you? It's your favorite vintage. Maybe you can suck it out of the fabric later." He patted my shoulder mockingly. "Good evening." He walked away, laughing, the two women clinging to his arms. I stood there, frozen. My heart rate didn't spike from fear. It spiked from pure, cold rage. Not because of the insult. I had handled worse insults from the prince, but because he had used my past weakness as a weapon. He wanted to remind Elara that she was married to a drunkard. "Wine," I whispered, looking down at the stain. "It's just fermented grape juice." Elara stepped closer, her face concerned. She raised her hand, mana gathering at her fingertips. "Aric, hold still. I can clean it with a spell." "No," I said. I ignored her. I turned my head, my eyes locked onto a serving table nearby. There, sitting on a silver tray, was a large glass pitcher filled with bright yellow-orange juice. I walked toward it. "Aric?" Elara called. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer. I picked up the pitcher. It was heavy, cold, and full of pulp. I turned and walked through the crowd. I moved with purpose. The nobles parted, sensing the change in the atmosphere. Jace was standing 10 meters away, with his back to me. He was holding the hand of one of the girls, leaning in to kiss her knuckles, no doubt bragging about his imaginary victories. I arrived behind him. I didn't hesitate. I didn't say a word. I tilted the pitcher. Splash! 2 liters of sticky, icy orange juice cascaded over Jace's hair, ruined his expensive velvet coat, and dripped down into his boots. The music stopped. The chatter died instantly. Jace froze. He slowly turned around, orange pulp sliding down his nose. He looked like a drowned rat. "Ah," I said, my voice echoing in the silent hall. "My apologies. I didn't see you there, but you must be happy. You like orange juice, don't you? It's good for the complexion." The crowd gasped. Elara put her hand over her mouth, eyes wide. "Aric!" Jace screamed, his voice cracking. You trash!" He lost all composure. He didn't cast a spell. He reacted with primal anger. He drew his fist back and swung a punch directly at my face. It was a sloppy punch, emotional, unrefined, but he was a mage. Even without a spell, his body was reinforced with latent mana. A normal human would have his jaw broken, but I am not a normal human anymore. I didn't dodge. I watched his fist come toward me in slow motion. I calculated the trajectory. I raised my left hand. Thud. The sound was heavy, solid, like a hammer hitting a wall. I caught his fist in my palm. Jace blinked. He tried to pull his hand back, but he couldn't. My fingers, reinforced by the Aegis suit hidden beneath my sleeve, clamped around his fist like a vice. "What?" Jace stammered. He tried to pull his hand back, but he couldn't. My fingers, reinforced by the Aegis suit hidden beneath my sleeve, clamped around his fist like a vice. "What?" Jace stammered. He tried to pull his hand back, but he couldn't. My fingers trembled. The same mana that had cleansed Elara's wounds began to freeze Jace's skin. Jace looked at me. He expected to see the weak, trembling cousin he used to bully. Instead, he saw a man looking at him with absolute boredom. I squeezed, just a little. Jace winced, his knees buckling slightly under the pressure. He said he defeated a goblin champion, I thought, analyzing the strength of his arm. The champion was a mountain of muscle that could shatter stone. This is nothing. This is a child throwing a tantrum. I leaned in close, my face inches from his. "You call yourself a mage?" I whispered. "Your stance is weak, your guard is open, and your punch—" I twisted his wrist, forcing him to take a step back to avoid breaking his arm. "Your punch lacks conviction." We stood there, locked in a stalemate, the trash noble holding the prodigy in place with one hand. For the first time in his life, Cousin Jace looked at me and didn't see a weakness. He saw a wall he couldn't break. And I realized something terrifyingly simple. I didn't need magic to crush these people. I just needed to stop pretending I was weak. The air in the grand hall was frozen. Every noble, every servant, every member of the top 5 was staring at my hand. I could feel the mechanical pulse of the Aegis suit through the fabric of my glove, humming with a power that none of them could perceive. Jace's face was a map of agony and terror. He tried to speak, but only a pathetic whimper escaped his juice-stained lips. Suddenly, a heavy hand landed on my shoulder. "That's enough." The voice was deep, resonant, and carried the weight of a command. I didn't need to look. I knew it was Darian. I slowly released my grip. Jace stumbled back, clutching his crushed wrist, his knees hitting the floor. He looked up at Darian, his eyes filled with tears of rage. "Darian, you saw him!" Jace shrieked, his voice cracking. "He insulted me. He insulted the entire family. He's just a mannerless rat, and he—" Darian didn't look at Jace. He kept his stern, crimson-eyed gaze fixed on me. "Jace, leave. You've embarrassed yourself enough for one night. Go clean that filth off your face." "But—" "Go," Darian repeated, his aura flaring slightly. It was a silent promise of violence. Jace scrambled to his feet and fled through the crowd. Darian studied me for a long moment. "I apologize for that, Aric, but you've changed. The Aric I remember would have crawled under a table and cried after being splashed with wine. I suppose I just ran out of patience, cousin. But don't worry, nothing has truly changed." I looked down at the dark wine stain on my chest. It smelled like a funeral. "Stand still," Elara's voice came from beside me. She raised her hand, and a wave of cool violet mana washed over my clothes. I watched as the wine stain evaporated. "Thank you," I said shortly. "I didn't expect you to do that," Elara said, her eyes searching mine. "I don't remember you hating wine enough to lose control. You used to love that vintage. You've changed, Aric. I can feel it. Your soul. It feels different." I didn't answer. I couldn't. "Come," Elara said, her voice returning to its formal tone. "We must greet your uncles and cousins. It is a matter of etiquette." I followed her, feeling like a shadow trailing behind a sun. As we moved through the hall, the social hierarchy was visible in every glance. When we approached, Aric and Elara spoke to the uncles and aunts with formal respect, offering greetings as tradition dictated. The elders looked at Elara with pride for her achievements, but when their gaze shifted to me, it curdled into something cold and sharp. Their eyes shining with pride for the hero of the border. But when their gaze shifted to me, it curdled into something cold and sharp. My aunts in particular looked at me with open disgust, as if I were a stain on their expensive rugs. They didn't even acknowledge my presence, speaking over my head to Elara about her achievements. We eventually reached the corner where the top 5 were gathered. It was a circle of power that I was clearly not meant to enter. Lumina and Seraphina immediately began chatting with Elara, their voices light and musical as they discussed high-tier magic and court gossip. They completely ignored me. I stood there, an invisible man. However, Orion, the blonde archer, turned toward me. He didn't have the same look of disgust as the others. He looked curious. "Are you all right, Aric? It's been a long time since you've been to one of these." "I've been stuck in my room," I replied vaguely. Orion nodded, a small smirk playing on his lips. "I see. You've had some difficult moments lately, I believe. But that stunt with the orange juice, that's the first time I've ever seen you strike back. It was quite a performance. I was just defending my suit." Suddenly, the music stopped. A sharp metallic sound echoed through the hall. My grandmother, the matriarch, had struck her cane against the stone floor. Silence fell instantly. The nobles stood at attention. "Valorians," she announced from her throne, "we are gathered here not just for celebration, but for duty. A family's strength is not measured by its wealth, but its loyalty and the peace of its lands. Recently, that peace has been broken." She stood up, her dark purple robes flowing around her like a shadow. "Farmers are disappearing in the eastern villages. Children are being taken from their beds. Something is nesting in the gray scrublands of our territory, and it is our blood that must answer the call. We will not wait for the king's knights. We are Valorians. We handle our own shadows." I waited for the rest. I expected a call for volunteers. "To handle this threat," Grandmother continued, her voice cutting like a blade, "I have selected a specialized team to intervene immediately. Darian, Lumina, Seraphina, Orion, Kalia." The top 5 stepped forward. They looked like the absolute elite of the kingdom, radiating an aura of overwhelming power and status. I began to relax. Good, I thought, it has nothing to do with me. Then she spoke the final name. "And Aric Valorian." I froze. I felt as if a bucket of ice water had been poured down my spine. The room erupted in a collective gasp. I saw Darian stiffen. I saw Orion's eyes widen. "What?" I blurted, the word escaping before I could stop it. "Me? Why me?" Grandmother looked at me, her eyes as cold as a mountain peak. "Every member of this generation must answer the duty of your blood. You will report to the briefing room in 2 days. You will join this mission." "Grandmother, there must be a mistake," I protested, stepping forward. "Others are far more capable. I am difficulty defeating a simple goblin. I am mana null. I will only be a burden to the top 5. "The decision is final," she snapped, striking her cane again. "You will answer the duty of your blood, or you will be stripped of your name, your manor, and your title. You have 2 days. Prepare yourselves." She turned away, her guards following her. The party was effectively over. The top 5 looked at me. Darian walked past, his face grim. "This is your first real mission for the family, Aric. We expected many things, but not this. Try not to get in the way." Orion followed, patting me with a look of pity. "It's a heavy duty, Aric. Try to survive it." I stood in the emptying hall, the silence rushing back in. Elara was standing nearby, watching me with that unreadable expression. I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. I had a plan. I was going to find a way back to Earth. I was going to leave this world of monsters and magic behind. But every time I tried to move forward, this world dragged me back. 2 days, I whispered to myself. If this kept happening, my mission to return home, which I thought would take months, might take years. I had been here for nearly 4 months already, and I was further from Earth than when I started. "Let's go, Aric," Elara said softly. We walked out to the carriage. I looked out the window at the receding silhouette of the castle. I was trapped again, chained to a mission I didn't want, with a family that expected me to die. The architect was being forced into a war, and if I wanted to see Earth again, I would have to survive the people who shared my own name. The carriage ride back to the manor was drowned in a silence so heavy it felt physical. Outside the window, the moon-drenched landscape blurred by, but my mind was already calculating the variables of the mission. 2 days, 48 hours to prepare for a descent into the unknown with people who wanted me dead. We pulled up to the manor entrance. As the door opened and I stepped onto the gravel, I felt Elara's presence right behind me. "Aric." I stopped. My heart skipped a beat. It wasn't the command that surprised me. It was the word. She hadn't called me Lord Valorian. She hadn't used my title. For the first time since I woke up in this body, she used my name. "Aric, I want to talk to you," she said, her voice softer than usual. I didn't turn around. I couldn't let her see the calculation in my eyes. "I'm sorry, my lady. It has been a long night. I am very tired. I'm going to my chambers." I didn't like this. When she used my name, she wasn't looking at a noble rank anymore. She was looking at a person, and that made me feel exposed. "Sebastian," Elara called out, ignoring my dismissal. The old butler appeared instantly from the shadows of the foyer. "Everything is already prepared, my lady. This way, if you please." I looked at Sebastian. He turned his head away, avoiding my gaze again. My loyal butler was becoming her loyal accomplice. "Prepared?" I asked, looking back at Elara. "What is he talking about?" "Follow me," she commanded. I had no choice. I followed her deep into the west wing of the manor, into a private parlor lit by a dozen low-burning candles. In the center of the room sat a single table made of dark obsidian. On the table was a chessboard. The pieces were carved from translucent mana crystals, white quartz for her, black onyx for me. They shimmered with a faint internal light. "A chessboard?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "We have never spent time together, Aric," Elara said, taking a seat on the white side of the table. She gestured to the chair opposite her. "The family mission is dangerous. Before you go, I want to see how you think. I want to see the logic behind your moves." I looked at the board, then at her. "Lady Everhart, I told you I am exhausted." "Of course," said Elara, a small, knowing smile touching her lips. "To make it interesting, there should be a prize for the winner, a wager." "A prize?" I asked. "The loser does whatever the winner wants," she said, her violet eyes locked onto mine, challenging me. "Anything." My eyes sharpened. Anything. If I won, I could demand the divorce. I could demand she leave me alone for good. I could finally have the freedom to find my way back to Earth without a grand mage breathing down my neck. I remembered the old Aric's memories. Elara was a master tactician. She was a champion. She had never lost a game of chess in her life. She was certain of her victory. I sat down, pulling the black onyx pieces toward me. She thinks she's playing against a drunkard. She doesn't realize she's playing against an engineer, a man who views the world as a system of moving parts. "Very well," I said, a cold smile finally appearing on my face. "You already know what I want if I win." "That's not the problem, Aric," Elara replied, her voice dropping to a whisper as she moved her first pawn. "The problem is that you don't know what I want." "I don't need to know," I said confidently, sliding a knight forward. The air in the room grew cold. She didn't look at the board. She looked at me. "You are not the weak Aric I remember," she said, her voice sharp as a blade. "You don't stumble. You don't drink. You block strikes from mages with your bare hands." She leaned in, her violet eyes searching for a crack in my armor. "Tell me, are you the real Aric Valorian?" I held her gaze, my expression unmoving. I allowed myself a small, dangerous smile. I am the only Aric Valorian you have left, Elara. Deal with it. The private parlor felt smaller than usual. The air was thick with the scent of beeswax and the faint ozonic hum of the mana crystal chess pieces. Across the obsidian table, Elara looked perfectly at home, but her eyes never left mine. First, Elara said, her voice smooth and cold, we establish the laws of the game. I leaned back, resting my hands on the edge of the table. Laws? If one of us wins, the loser must do whatever the winner wants. No exceptions, she stated. However, if the game ends in a draw, there is no winner. No commands are given. I let out a short, dry laugh. A draw? You realize that in professional play, more than 60% of games end in a stalemate? Ilara's lips curved into a small, confident smile. And so? I have never played a game that ended in a draw. I have always won. Your statistics are irrelevant to me, unless you are so confident in your chance of forced failure. She was baiting me. She wanted me to feel inferior before the first move was even made. I accept your laws, I said firmly. Excellent. Sebastian will be our witness and arbitrator. We play a single match. I looked at Sebastian, who stood like a statue in the shadows. He nodded once, a look of profound unease on his face. Elara didn't wait. She reached out and moved her first pawn with practiced grace. Click. The white quartz piece hit the obsidian with a sharp, resonant sound. It's now or never, I thought. Back on Earth, I wasn't a grandmaster, but I was a professional. I knew the theory, I knew the traps, and right now I was playing for my life. No, my life had been in danger since the moment I woke up in this world. This was play for my freedom. We traded moves in silence for several minutes. The only sound was the rhythmic tapping of crystal on stone. I am surprised, Elara said, breaking the silence. She looked down at the board, her brow twitching. I didn't expect this level of play, Aric. You are forcing me to defend. I slid my bishop across the board, the black onyx glowing with a dark inner fire. Check, I said calmly. Ilara's eyes widened slightly. The first check, impressive. I intend to win, Lady Everhart, I replied. She made her move, her eyes scanning the board with predatory speed. Why do you insist on this, Aric? Only a few months ago, you were begging me not to leave on my missions. You hated being alone. And yet, the moment I return, you demand a divorce. I moved my queen, putting more pressure on her king. I was a fool back then, I said, looking her directly in the eyes. During your absence, I woke up. I am 30 years old now. It's time I found my own path. You are 26, Elara. Life is far too short to waste it on a ghost. She paused, her hand hovering over a knight. You mean to tell me that in 6 months of my absence, you decided to change every one of your habits and move forward? I haven't changed my habits, I lied, sliding my black knight into her territory. I've simply refined my objectives. Elara stared at the board, then at me. Stop. I am shocked that you haven't touched a single drop of alcohol tonight. Not at the prince's ball, not at the family gathering. Even the servants whisper that it has been 4 months since you tasted wine. I leaned forward, the candlelight highlighting the sharp angles of my face. You make a lot of noise over a simple beverage. Perhaps you should focus more on your game. Check, she countered, her voice dropping to a whisper. Even your words have changed. Before, you called me Elara, my wife, my dear. Now, it is always Lady Everhart. And you? I asked, my voice equally cold. Before, I was only Lord Valorian.
Now you use my name. Why the sudden interest?" "I always used it," she replied, her eyes flashing violet. "You were simply too drunk to notice." I looked at the board. I was in check, but it was a shallow attack. She was good. Her level was equal to the highest difficulty settings I had encountered on Earth, but my training was professional. I saw her opening. "I told you before, everything you did was right. Not calling me by my name, not telling me about your missions, leaving me alone. I am not your real husband. This is a political arrangement, nothing more." Elara's expression shifted. For the first time, I saw a crack in her armor. She was cornered. "I'm sorry, Lady Everhart," I said, a faint smile appearing, "but I am going to win this game." Elara smiled back, a dangerous, beautiful look. "In your dreams, Aric." She went silent, her eyes darting across the board. Sebastian stood in the corner, his jaw literally dropping. For 10 years, he had watched Elara dominate every mind in the kingdom. Now he was watching a mana null push the most powerful mage to her limits. I watched her think. She wasn't stressed. To my surprise, she actually looked like she was actually enjoying herself. "You're being reckless," she noted, moving a piece. "Don't worry about me," I said, sliding my piece home. "Worry about your king." The game reached its boiling point. Elara spent a long time reflecting on each move, her eyes scanning every possible outcome. But every time she made a move, I responded instantly. My hands moved like a machine, guided by decades of Earth's chess theory. I could see her frustration growing, but I didn't stop. "I'm sorry, my lady," I said with a confident smirk, "but your entire strategy is open to me now. I know every move you're going to make." Elara stared at the board, her silver hair shimmering in the candlelight. Sebastian, standing in the corner, was shocked once again. He wasn't just surprised by my skill, but by Elara herself. For the first time in years, the Ice Queen was gone. She wasn't cold. She was having fun. She was actually enjoying the struggle. "You're being quite reckless with your pieces, aren't you?" Elara noted, finally making a move. "Don't worry about me," I replied, moving my piece immediately. "Just stay focused on your own board." Internally, I was already celebrating. It's over, I thought. Once I win this, I'm leaving. I'll head west toward the Elven Kingdom. I've already decided my next step. No more arrogant princes, no more suicide missions for a family that hates me. Just freedom. I looked at her. "You're having a difficult time, my lady," I said, sliding another piece forward. Elara smiled, a real, genuine smile. "Yes, I believe this is a first for me." I was confused. She's not stressed? She's enjoying this? I looked at the board. The endgame was here. "It's over now," I announced. "Either I win in 3 moves or it's a forced draw. There is no other way out for you." I reached for my final piece to deliver the finishing blow. "It was a lovely game, my lady." Sebastian leaned in, his eyes wide. I was dominating the board, but just as my fingers touched the crystal piece, something hit my foot under the table. Thump. A sharp kick to my shin. I gasped, startled, and looked up at Elara. The Ice Queen was gone. In her place, Elara was pouting. Her cheeks were puffed out, her lips curled in a cute, stubborn expression, like a character straight out of an anime. I was paralyzed. I tried to move my piece to the winning square, but she kept that adorable, stubborn face fixed on me. My logic faltered. I moved the piece back toward the draw position, and her face immediately shifted back to the cold Ice Queen mask. I moved it back to the winning square, she pouted again. I moved it back to the draw, she became the Ice Queen. "What? What are you doing?" I stammered. She said nothing, maintaining that cute, ridiculous face. I looked at her, then at my hand, then at her again. I never expected a grand mage, the most feared woman in the kingdom, to use a cute face to win a chess match. "Fine," I muttered, rubbing my head.
Let's just end this. But before I could even make my choice, Elara's eyes flickered with a faint violet light. Clink! A small gust of magical wind hit my piece. It tipped over and slid across the obsidian table, landing exactly on the square that triggered a stalemate. A perfect draw. "Ha!" I shouted. "Wait! I won! That was magic! We both saw that!" I turned to Sebastian. "Sebastian, you're the arbitrator. You saw her move my piece with magic." Sebastian looked at Elara. She was smiling at him, a soft, warm smile that he hadn't seen since she was a little girl playing with her grandfather. Sebastian cleared his throat, his loyalty shifting in a heartbeat. "My apologies, my Lord Aric, but this game is a draw. There is no winner." "What? Sebastian?" Elara leaned back, looking triumphant. "It's over. Our arbitrator has spoken. A draw. No winner, no loser." I slumped in my chair. No, another opportunity wasted. Elara saw my disappointment on my face. "Aric," she started, her voice soft. I stood up abruptly. "I see. I lost the war even if I won the game." I turned to leave. "Aric," she called out. I stopped and looked back. "I had a good time. Let's do this again soon." I didn't answer. I walked straight to my chambers and slammed the door. "Damn it," I hissed, punching the stone wall. I had her. I had the win. I remembered her pouting face and felt my face heating up. She's dangerous, I thought. I didn't expect a grand mage to play like that. She knew exactly what she was doing. She was prepared for everything, while I was just focused on the pieces. I sat at my desk, a small smile finally breaking through my frustration. Well, at least I saw something no one else has ever seen. I suppose I'm the fool after all. I shook my head, my eyes turning cold again. No more distractions. I had to focus on the mission. Tomorrow, I would visit my friend Doaf. I needed to see if he had finished my new equipment. If I was going to survive the sacrifice, I needed more than just logic. I needed a weapon that could change the world. The sun had not yet cleared the horizon when I left the manor. The morning air was sharp, carrying the scent of damp earth and the distant smoke of the capital's industry. I didn't take the carriage. I needed to move unnoticed. I arrived at the iron quarter just as the first hammers began to strike. Brog's workshop was a chaotic symphony of steam and grinding gears. He was waiting for me, wiping grease from his thick, calloused hands. "Good morning, Brog," I said, stepping over a pile of scrap. "Mornin', lad," the dwarf grunted, his eyes gleaming with pride. "You're just in time. I've finished it. It was a nightmare to calibrate, but she's a beauty." He pulled a heavy tarp off a workbench. Resting there was a weapon that didn't belong in this world. It was a heavy, shoulder-mounted launcher, constructed from blackened dwarven steel and etched with glowing blue power lines. "The Seeker Launcher," Brog announced, "as per your designs. It fires condensed mana orbs that lock on to the heat and mana signatures of a target. Once it's fired, there is no running away. And more importantly," he pressed a mechanical latch. With a series of satisfying clicks and whirs, the massive weapon folded in on itself, contracting and shrinking until it was no larger than a small metal briefcase. "It can be hidden easily," I noted, picking it up. It was heavy, but the Aegis suit beneath my coat would compensate for the weight. "You've outdone yourself, Brog. This is a masterpiece of engineering." "It was your blueprints, Aric," Brog said, lighting an unlit cigar. "I just provided the hands. So, what's next? You look like a man with more ideas than time." I pulled a fresh roll of parchment from my coat and laid it on the table. It was a complex schematic for something much larger, something involving automated joints and independent power cores. "Here is the next phase," I said. "Study it. Start sourcing the materials. I will be away for a few days on a family mission, but when I return, I want to see the prototype." Brog looked at the drawings, his eyes widening. "By the ancestors, this is a revolution. I'll get to work immediately." I left the workshop and returned to the manor, the compact launcher hidden beneath my coat. I needed to prepare for the Valorian mission, but the peace of the morning was shattered the moment I entered my study. Sebastian was waiting for me. His face was paler than usual, his posture stiff with anxiety. "Sir, I have grave news," Sebastian said without preamble. "The prince?" I asked, setting the briefcase on my desk. "Yes, Valerius knows. His informants have confirmed that the unrest in the silver mines was our doing. He knows we leaked the embezzlement records to the Miners' Guild." I narrowed my eyes. How? My father's network was supposed to be secure. "The assassin from the other night, sir, the one you let go to send a message. He didn't make it back to the guild. The prince's personal guard intercepted him. Under torture, he spoke. He died shortly after." I felt a cold chill. I had underestimated the prince's desperation. Narcissists don't just get angry, they become rabid when their gold is threatened. "I see," I said, my voice turning to ice. "So the wolf has found the scent." "Sir, if I may offer counsel," Sebastian stepped forward, his voice pleading. "Tell Lady Elara, the prince cannot touch you if she intervenes. Not even the king would dare to oppose the hero of the border if she stands by your side." "Forget it," I snapped. "It's impossible. I won't use her as a shield." "Sir, you are being incredibly stubborn," Sebastian noted, his frustration breaking through. "I saw what happened during the chess match. I saw how you looked at her, and I saw how she looked at you." He paused, then looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen before. It wasn't the look of a butler. It was the look of a father. "Aric," he said softly. I flinched. He used my name. "My son," I continued. "I have served this house for decades. I served your grandfather and Elara's grandfather. For years, I watched Elara grow cold, and I watched you drown in a bottle of wine. I watched two families collapse into misery." He walked closer, his eyes searching mine. "But these last 4 months, everything has changed. I see a man who is confident, intelligent, and brave. I see a man who faces the crown prince without fear. Elara sees it too. She is trying to change, Aric. She is reaching out. Why won't you give this a chance? You lose nothing by letting her help you." I looked at Sebastian, and for a moment, the weight of his words almost broke my resolve. I wanted to tell him the truth. I wanted to tell him that I wasn't the son he thought I was. I was a stranger from another world who just wanted to find his way back to a place where logic ruled and magic didn't. "Sebastian," I said, my voice dropping, "we have a pact. You gave me your word to help me divorce Elara. In return, I'm leaving her everything, this manor, the gold, and the title." Sebastian looked at me for a long moment before answering. "That is true, sir. But when we made that deal, you were an alcoholic wreck. You weren't even capable of managing your own body. But now you have changed. My son, your eyes have transformed during these last 4 months. You are even capable of confronting the crown prince without fear. The old Aric could never have done that." "That's because I'm a different person from another world," I thought to myself. "Sebastian," I said out loud, "I will ask you the same question I asked before our pact. Do you truly think a man like me deserves to be at Elara's side?" Sebastian remained silent for a heartbeat, remembering the rare, genuine smile on Elara's face during our chess match. "My answer is, it is Elara who must decide that." "What? Sebastian, you're forgetting that our grandfathers arranged this. This was a prepared marriage. It wasn't Elara who chose this." "Yes, that is true, sir. Regarding our pact, I will continue to help you and do my best for your objectives. But if I see that Elara wants to stay at your side, not because of her grandfather, but because she truly wishes it, then I will stand by her side, just as I did yesterday." I scoffed, turning away. "That is impossible. She only stays because of a dead man's oath. Do what you want, but I am certain of one thing. It is impossible for a woman like her to love a man like me, or to ever see me as her true husband. Now, leave me. I need to prepare for the mission, and don't say a word to her about the prince. If he moves against me while she is here, I'll handle it. If I can't handle a spoiled prince, I'll never survive the Eastern Scrublands." "As you wish, my lord,"
Sebastian sighed, bowing deeply. And the prince? Leave him for now. He won't strike while Elara is in the manor. He's a coward at heart. He'll wait for me to be alone. I spent the rest of the day and the night in my workshop, checking every bolt on the Aegis suit and calibrating the seeker launcher. Elara didn't disturb me. She knew I was preparing for my first real duty to the family. The next morning, as I prepared to board the carriage for the Valorian castle, Elara was waiting by the front door. She wasn't in her battle armor, but in a simple, elegant traveling dress. "I've come to see you off," she said, her voice surprisingly soft. "It's your first mission. I wanted to encourage you." I looked at her, feeling that strange heat in my face again. I quickly masked it with a shrug. "What mission? I'm just a spectator. A mana null like me can't do anything in a real fight. I'll just be watching the top 5 do the work." Elara smiled, a small, knowing smile. "Good luck, anyway, Aric." "Thank you. Goodbye, Elara." I stepped into the carriage where Sebastian was waiting. The wheels began to turn, taking me away from the only person who might actually care if I came back alive. The architect was going to war, but as the manor disappeared into the distance, I couldn't help but feel that the most dangerous battle wasn't with monsters, but with the people waiting for me at the end of the road.